Ty, you're having a really bad day.
Oh, really? Oh, you're gone. You're gone.
What did I say? That was Setup Man Theater. Welcome into the Setup Man podcast. Ty and I just had to reenact one of the most ridiculous ejections I think I've ever seen in my lifetime. I don't know about you, Ty, but we'll get into that and more shortly. But I am Alex, as previously mentioned. That is Ty along with me tonight. We're going to recap the series in the Motor City against the Detroit Tigers. A little disappointing, if we're being honest. We'll get into that. There are some injury updates on Porter Hodge and Shota Imanaga, and then we will talk about the upcoming series against the Philadelphia Phillies. But the headline of the weekend was that just horrid ejection of Nico Hoerner. And per Marquee, kudos to them. We've ragged on them quite a bit on this network. They had really cool audio that we're going to play. If you're watching on YouTube, you also see the video. But if you're just listening, it's a little foggy, but I'll translate after the fact. But here is the raw audio of Nico Hoerner's ejection. If you didn't hear, Nico said to the umpire, "You're having a really bad day." And then Nico looks in shock. He's like, "All I said was you were having a bad day." And then Counsell gets out there, and Nico tells Counsell what he said. And then you can hear Counsell at the very end. "That's nothing, Derek." Derek Thomas behind the plate today. I mean, doesn't that just summarize the weekend, man? Nothing seemed to really go the Cubs' way. We're going to get into some base running stuff here in a minute. But overall, I was really disappointed in the umpiring crew this weekend. It's such loser talk to be like, "Oh, it's the umpire's fault." No, the Cubs missed opportunities. Let's not go down the road of it's the umpire's fault. But they sure as hell didn't get a lot of help from the umpiring crew. And it was both sides, too. There were a couple pitches today Detroit didn't get. And me and my dad looked at each other watching the game together like, where did that miss again? So, Ty, question from this whole ejection scandal, if you want to call it that. It's time for ABS, right? Automatic balls and strikes.
Happy Sunday to you, Alex. So great to see you.
No, it's not happy.
The opening bit, I was angry, and I'm sorry for throwing you out like that.
It's okay.
Because you really didn't say anything that was too offensive. And the fact that an umpire who realistically, if for the history of baseball that I've seen with umpires and coaches, there's some pretty serious things that need to be said for a player or a coach to be tossed from a game. And so to answer your question, there's coming to a point where you go, are these guys really held accountable? Are these umpires really held accountable for the mistakes they've made? I mean, there's a reason why we have review now in this game when it comes to plays outside of outside of the strike zone. And so these umpires, that just it made you go, man, like, really, are these guys held accountable at all? And it really is a shame. And in that situation, right? Let's say the ABS system is there. Nico taps his helmet. Let's say it's a ball, right? I think it was a ball. I mean, right, Alex?
Yes, it was low.
You both agree it was a ball, okay?
Going in, yeah.
So he taps his helmet, reviews it, boom. The umpire is held accountable. The game moves on, right? I believe Nico Hoerner, I believe that was a 3-2 count, so he had a walk there, right? Versus one of the funnier comments I've ever heard in my years of playing baseball and watching baseball is, "You're having a really bad day thus far." And I give credit to Nico for that chirp, because the best chirps in the world are in hockey, if we're being honest. Some of the things that you hear from the audio clips and what you hear from social media is some of the things that are said to these referees. And these referees, the way they can manage that, and they don't get to throw anybody out, is pretty impressive. So the fact of the matter is that home plate umpire, he looked very happy to do what he did. And it just made me cringe. And Craig's reaction was, I was so thrilled to hear him say what he said to him, because that's it. That's what you're going to throw him out for.
Yeah.
I mean, credit to the umpire on Saturday for not throwing anybody out when the entire dugout was screaming. I believe his last name was Hiddings. I believe was the umpire on
Doug Eddings.
Saturday. Doug Eddings.
Eddings. Yeah.
He thankfully at least held back. I mean, realistically, somebody should have gotten thrown out. Luckily, the Cubs scored a bunch of runs, so it didn't matter. But I mean, it's just getting to be ridiculous. Some of these strike calls, and look, last thing I'll say here, Alex, the guys that were throwing on Saturday and Sunday, realistically, they're not throwing 102. I mean,
outside of Palencia, yeah.
Like Jamison Tyone, Kyron Montero. I mean, on Sunday was Cade Horton, which he's 96. Like it shouldn't be that difficult. Like you're a big league umpire. And it just felt like all weekend that was something that was going to be talked about, like it is right now that we've talked about for a few minutes here. But it's just such a shame, and I'm really looking forward to this system being instilled into baseball. And I totally agree with the way that you guys talked about it on your guys' episode on Friday. It's becoming ridiculous. So I'm sorry for going long there, but it's just really sad that a player like that is getting ejected, and that in a critical part of the game. To be ejected like that, and a player like Nico, it was really a shame to watch.
Low key, one of my favorite moments of the weekend was Doug Eddings being terrible, and you could hear Craig Counsell from the dugout saying, "You got to be better," or just whatever he said, and you could read Doug Eddings' lips saying, "I'll get better." And I know they've been pointing it out on marquee, but just what do you say to that? It's over. Like the yelling is over. Like, oh, okay, he said he'll be better then, I guess. I don't know, man. Again, we're going to talk about the missed opportunities right now, and at risk of losing the audience from saying, "Oh, you guys are losers." We're not having a total umpire debate. It was just these were the best two teams in baseball. Still might be the two best teams in baseball because the Cubs hung with them, all things considered, outside of today. But you have one of the worst crews in baseball. That's not even my words. That's Hall of Famer Chipper Jones on X was just all over the umps for this series this weekend. It was a shame, man. But let's talk about things that the Cubs did control. And the first thing I want to talk about is base running. The base running this series basically was every game. Today was pretty clean base running wise, but you have Friday night, the PCA, Quentin Berry, the third base coach, was sending them late in the game to give them the lead. He was send. Well, PCA rounds third. All of a sudden, he throws up the brakes. Javier Baez throws behind him. PCA's out. Totally changes the game. Yesterday, literally game-winning walk-off pickoff. Reese McGuire picks off whoever was running at first. I don't even remember. But it just base running defined this whole weekend. So kids out there, if you think, "Oh, coach is making us run the bases again," no. Base running is that important. It can literally cost you games. And Ty, we were talking off air about the PCA one. I know you have a giant breakdown you want to get into. So we'll do an old-fashioned Ty clear out. ISO, you have the ball, good sir. Let's talk about PCA getting backpicked, I guess, kind of.
Well, I appreciate you letting me do this. And folks, I think it's just very important that I can get it through to you guys what really the breakdown of this play was. So let's set the scene. So it is the top of the fifth in game one. Okay. I believe the Cubs are down 1-0 at this point, or it's a tie ball game. Okay. Sorry if I messed that up. But so PCA is on first base with no outs. And as we all know, PCA is pure chaos on the bases and has really transformed this offense this year from a base running standpoint. Okay. So Swanson hits a double to left field. So he hits it to, it would technically be the left fielder's right side, which is Riley Green. Now, Riley Green is a left-hander. So the ball is hit to him. So now Riley Green is running to his glove side. So now for this play to be made, Riley Green has to either throw, basically he sort of has to reset himself and throw in, which he's not able to take any momentum to the plate. So you know it's going to be a light throw. The other way he could do it is spin, which he didn't do. He took the route of, I'm just going to stop here and I'm going to throw in. Okay. So PCA is running the third base. So he's about halfway there. Now, the one part I don't have here is that when PCA is running from second to third, is Quentin Berry waving his arms or telling him to stop. Most of the time in a situation where the third base coach is being able to see the left fielder, generally speaking, he's going to make his call if you're going to run home probably after you're about halfway to 3/4 there. Okay, that's what we were taught growing up, and that's the way I coached at least. So Barry, at that point, if you look at the standstill image, looks like he's going to lift both his arms. So if you're going to lift both arms, okay, what I learned was you either lift your arms, which means that you're going to run to third base, but then you're still going to sort of take a little bit of a turn around third base and turn around and see if maybe there's been an error, so then the runner can proceed home. Or the base running coach, the third base coach, will point at third base, which means you need to stop directly on the bag. So in this situation, Quentin Berry decides to, he looks like he's going to throw his arms up. Well, then in that spot, about 3/4 of the way, PCA now has started to slow down. Now, remember, folks, there's nobody out, okay? Guys that are coming up after PCA is Nico Hoerner, who has a 902 OPS with runners in scoring position, and Justin Turner after him, who has over 1,000 OPS with runners in scoring position. So not only has PCA slowed down, Riley Green does not make an error. Okay, he actually fields the ball cleanly and throws it in. And most of the time, you're going to stop your runner there. It doesn't matter if it's PCA or Ricky Henderson. Probably best to slow down there. I know it's Tarek Skubal on the mound, but unfortunately, so in that situation, though, you have those two hitters coming up. So it's just like, I just didn't agree with the situation. So the throw from Green then comes in. It's not necessarily a great throw because I think even Riley Green thought there's no way they're going to send him. There's nobody out. And, why in this situation would you do that? So once he's about 3/4 of the way there. So we back up here. So PCA now has gotten 3/4 of the way there. He's looked like he's about to throw his hands up to stop him. Well, then he proceeds to tell him to go. What does PCA now have to do? He now has to speed back up. Now, he's a freak athlete, right? So somehow, some way, he still sort of gives himself a chance to get back to third base because then right as PCA taps the bag at third base is sort of when Javi, who's their shortstop, Baez, obviously everyone knows, gets the ball. So now Javi is in his mind, he's probably hearing from the catcher to third base to throw home. He then turns as Barry tells PCA to stop. PCA stops, turns around. He's a few feet off the bag. And now somehow, some way, Javi corrects his body positioning to then throw out PCA at third base. And Zach McKinstry was right there to be able to tag him out. So if looking at this play overall, my thoughts are this. The ball was fielded cleanly in left field by Riley Green. The throw was coming in, and PCA had not touched third base yet. I know PCA is an absolute freak on the base paths, but that was not the situation to then try and change things up and get erratic over there at third base. Like Quentin Berry has been absolutely incredible this year. I know there was people online who said, under my tweet that I had tweeted about this play of saying, like, I just didn't feel like that was the right decision there. Like that was a critical part of this game. And people were saying, oh, well, there's been other instances. I felt like this is the most probably blatant one he's had this year. So hopefully I explained that as best I could, but looking at the situation overall, like you had the hitters coming up that were best with runners in scoring position. You were in a close game. Like they lost 3-1. Those two runs with Swanson now at second base and PCA at third, you're likely going to score from third base with PCA anyways because he's a freak athlete and can run like the wind. And Dansby Swanson's a good base runner too, so he probably finds a way to come around and score. So overall, it was a situation where you look back on it and you go, Ty, why would you spend multiple minutes talking about this play? Well, it's critical to note that like this could have realistically changed the game. And it's important for folks to understand that. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded there, Alex.
No, and I think it's valuable. And just, the common person who does it or a casual that's watching is like, why didn't they send him? He's super fast. Well, ultimately it didn't work out. And the indecision from your third base coach with the start, stop. What I had my high school baseball coach was just base running is what we did for like an hour every day. And the one thing this is a high school coach, by the way. If you stop your momentum, you might as well just stop at whatever bag you're going to, because to try and speed back up, then you risk injury. I mean, these are professionals, who knows? But also the Cubs have had the injury season from hell, so you're never too sure. But also, then if you're trying to speed back up to score, every Cubs fan knows Javi's got an absolute chooch at shortstop. He's got one of the strongest arms in baseball.
Exactly.
So it just, there was a number of things about that in a 5-second span where it was almost like watching a car crash in slow motion. It was just like you couldn't look away. It's like, oh God, this isn't going to end well regardless. Now, Javi could have just tucked it in his back pocket, no harm, no foul, and who knows? Because I believe the next pitch, Nico hit to deep center, which would have been a sac fly. Well, ultimately, that wasn't the case. But also, I would even argue that this kind of changed the series because what's the old cliche? If you're in a 3-game series, they'll get one, you'll get one, and there's another one that's going to be a toss-up. Well, Friday ended up being the toss-up game because the Tigers won pretty handily today. We, the Cubs, won pretty handily yesterday. And Friday, against the best pitcher on the face of the planet, you were in that game till the very bitter end. But the base running stuff, you shot yourself in the foot. And I don't necessarily blame PCA for that. I think Quentin Berry kind of forgot who was running. Because if you look, he like you said, he was throwing up the stop sign. It's like, oh, it's PCA. He's fast enough. Maybe he'll make it. And you see him start kind of swinging his arms again. It was like, oh God, please, God no. And that was the game right there. And then they really didn't have any other opportunities since or after that in that game specifically. So no,
I really love how you just explained that too, where you talked about like there's 2 games normally in these series when you have 2 very good teams where they're normally going to go, one's going to go one way, one will go the other, and then you have like the game with sort of like who's going to make the mistakes, right. And it just feels like right now against these very, very good teams, I won't say that this has been the case because realistically, here's another great point too. Like the Cubs haven't faced a good team in quite some time. Like it's a very good base. It's been about a month. So like those little things that you could do in those games where you're playing those opponents in that 21 game stretch that were below 500, like you could make aggressive decisions because you knew that you could probably make up for them at some point throughout the game. Like these types of decisions, man, can like transform an entire series. And look, Quentin Berry, I guarantee you sat down with PCA and Craig Counsell after that game or the next day and sat there and talked about what happened. And Quentin Berry is probably going to say, if he gets interviewed, hey, that one was on me. I shouldn't have told PCA to go. Like Monday Morning Quarterback is sitting here right here on the right side of the screen. I can look at this play all day and say, look what you did wrong.
Right.
It's just that those little decisions at this high a level of competition is what makes the difference. And that's why it was important that we talked about it.
Absolutely. And like we mentioned earlier, base running decided the game yesterday. Literally, the Cubs walked off on a bad base running play by Detroit. And look, I don't know if Detroit is actually the best team in the sport, but they got the best record. And who was the old football coach? Dennis Green. Your record is you are what your record says, or however that goes. Absolutely. They have the best record in baseball. That's not a fluke. They're a really good baseball team. And really, looking at the schedule here, the Cubs haven't played a really good baseball team since early May when they had the Mets, when they went to New York. Otherwise, it's been Marlins, White Sox, Marlins, Reds twice, and Colorado. Like, they haven't had to face this kind of competition. Well, let me tell you, folks, their June is really tough. We're going to get to the Philly series in a second. But then this weekend, they got 4 with Pittsburgh. Then they got Milwaukee. Then they got Seattle. Then they got 4 with St. Louis. It doesn't get any easier. So
one more thing, too, on that base running point is that they had no stolen bases throughout the entire series.
No.
Like, they were averaging a stolen base per game over the course of the season. 82 stolen bases, third in all of baseball through 65 games thus far. So the only attempt you had was by Matt Shaw in game 1 was thrown out. Like, these things, like, it was hard to watch the Cubs this weekend just because it felt like, one, they obviously didn't get a lot of base runners in games 1 and 3, but it just felt like they kind of divvied away from that a little bit. Did you feel like that too, Alex?
I did. And actually, so I wanted to bring this up. I didn't have that next on my sheet, but I'm going to skip to it now. So the Cubs were shut out for the second time this week. So they were shut out by Mackenzie Gore on Wednesday, and they were shut out today by Jack Flaherty. I don't know what the numbers say, but just eyeball test. Are you starting to get a little worried about the Cubs facing these top tier pitchers? Because I looked up some of their losses the majority of their losses this season, no, this is, again, they've had a really great season to this point. This is really nitpicky, but I just want to have the conversation and ask the question. Are we worried about their performance against top-of-the-line pitchers? Example, Skubal on Friday. They really didn't do much, but no one does much against Skubal, so throw that out the window if you want. Jack Flaherty, solid pitcher. Today, shut him out. Mackenzie Gore, shut him out on Wednesday. Really good pitcher. Hunter Green, that was the game where PCA had to hit the grand slam. They were down 6-2 and came all the way back. But against Hunter Green, it wasn't great. Jesus Luzardo, who they face again this week, was awesome last time they faced. Shut him out. Freddie Peralta on a Sunday. Freddie Peralta shut him out. Robbie Ray, Cy Young winner. They lost that game. Andrew Abbott, really good for Cincinnati. Twice. Lost to him both times. So there are multiple examples here. And I'm just asking the question. The offense has been great, but against these top-of-the-line pitchers, things kind of come back to earth a little bit. So I'm just asking the question.
I think where I'm worried about this whole team is, how do I explain this? I don't feel like they have a proven track record to show these types of performances against these top of the line pitchers. They haven't really done that great of a job over the last couple of years, I feel like, against top of the line starters. And that is a legitimate question at this point. Stats wise and everything, it's hard to compile in my head right now what all those numbers would look like. But you're going to face these types of arms in the playoffs. And that is a little bit of a concern. So I do not disagree with you there. I think it feels like, I'd be interested to know, like, with those opponents when they faced them at Wrigley, did Wrigley have an effect on those games? But you can't just blame everything on, the ballpark. We feel like there are still situations where this team could have had chances to do very well, or to do well against top of the line starters. So that is a little bit of a fear of mine right now. The offense has still been incredible this year, but it is a legitimate question. If you're listening to this in your car ride, ponder that question. Like, is that something to start to be concerned about? So I think where I'm at is yes, I'm a little suspect of that right now, but hopefully that can change here and they could show something over the next month.
And again, that might be, I might totally be nitpicking, but as I'm going through their schedule today and I'm looking at losses, okay, they lost here. Who was that against? Oh, Tariq Skubal. Well, who doesn't lose to Skubal? Hey, Freddie Peralta, he's pretty good. He's got a sub 2.3 ERA. Oh, Robbie Ray, he's won a Cy Young. He's had a bit of a bounce back. So Hunter Green, who's an up-and-coming stud, having kind of a breakout year. It's just they keep running into these tough pitchers. They take care of business against who they're supposed to take care of, which good teams do. Okay, great. But against your elite guys, you're supposed to struggle against those guys. That's why those guys get paid millions and millions and millions of dollars. I understand that. But as you said, come October, you might face the Dodgers, who might roll out Yamamoto, Glasnow.
Snell, yeah.
No,
yeah,
and he's not even pitching right now, but they have a ton of dudes. Even San Francisco, Robbie Ray is there. There are guys up and down these rotations that are like, oh, God, we got to face that guy. Even look at this week. We're going to get to this in a little bit, but just a little sneak peek of what's to come on our show. They got Zach Wheeler tomorrow, arguably one of the best pitchers in the National League. Then in game 2, Mick Abel, who's top tier prospect, looked really good. Only 2 games, but has looked really good. And then they close out with Luzardo, who we talked about earlier, shut them down last time they faced him. It's not like you're going to face these teams. It's going to be, oh, okay, like, we're good. No, all these really good teams have really good pitchers, and that's the one thing that I think the Cubs lack right now. Because as much as I've been impressed with Cade Horton so far, if Matthew Boyd was on the hill today, I probably would have felt a little better about their chances of winning. So I want to get into that really quick. So Ben Brown and Cade Horton, your 2 young pitchers who you're relying a lot on. Ben Brown on Friday went pitch for pitch with Tariq Skubal. Hats off to him. He was fantastic. 7 innings, 2 earned runs, only 1 walk, 7 Ks, and he did give up a homer. And then Cade Horton today was fine. I thought he was good enough to give them a chance to win. It wasn't always pretty. He did make a couple more mistakes than we're used to seeing out of him at the big league level. But still, 5 innings, 7 hits, 4 earned runs, did walk 2, 6 Ks, and only 85 pitches. He was good enough. And with the way the bullpen has been going, okay. But I think, and I want your opinion on this, I think this series highlighted, okay, this team really is a starter, maybe even 2 starters short, because you're relying on these young guys. And Ben Brown showed up. Cade Horton, okay, he was fine. It wasn't great, but it was fine. But you really need that ace, because if you had one of your quote-unquote aces, Tyone yesterday was brilliant. But say today you run out pick a trade target, a Zach Gallen or a whoever, you feel a little better. So I think this series highlighted the need for a pitcher. What do you think?
I do as well. And the reason why I believe this is the case is because, like, Ben Brown, while the start that he had on Friday was, extremely impressive, you unfortunately have been a little inconsistent as well, Mr. Brown. And unfortunately, that's just not acceptable for a team that is competing for winning a division and going far in the playoffs. And then Cade Horton, like, guys, he's a rookie. It's really hard to be successful in this league as a rookie, whether it is from the batter's box or the bump. It's very difficult because adjustments are made. They start to learn who you are, and then they just lay off, those really, that pitch that was working in AAA, for example, let's just say it's, Cade Horton's slider, right? Well, maybe over time they realize and figure out how to lay off that slider. Now he's got to work. Now he's got to rely on the fastball more. And so over time, these younger pitchers are figured out. Now, it's really encouraging to see Ben Brown do what he did based on the fact of, how much of a struggle it's been. But right now, for that 4 and 5 spot, it's a little iffy with a team that is having the expectations of going to the playoffs. So getting Shota back will change everything, but Shota right away may not be Shota Imanaga that we know because he hasn't pitched in a long time, right? So it emphasizes, yes, we need another arm, and I would say that needs to happen quick. Didn't Jesse Rogers or somebody go on and say that they're actually looking for an arm right now? So because it makes sense.
Bruce Levine on Marquee, Cubs insider for Marquee, had mentioned that he believes they're going to get a starter sooner than later. He even mapped out like within the next 2 weeks. I don't know if it's going to be that quick, but there's at least smoke there. And then Bob Nightingale today actually reported he expects the Cubs to be amongst 4. He listed 4 teams, but the Cubs were among those he expects to be the most aggressive. So maybe that timeline is a little short, but I do think the Cubs realize, okay, because realistically, say things stay the way they are, who are you actually trusting in a playoff series right now? You're trusting Tyone and Boyd. I don't trust Colin Ray. I don't trust.
And that was someone I forgot to mention too. Like, you don't even trust your third guy right now.
Right. Exactly.
So I totally agree with you. Shota, you trust. Tyone, you trust, and Boyd, you trust, but you can't rely on those 3 guys to get you through 5, even probably not even 6 in a playoff game. It's just different. You know what I mean? It's just different. So
they're going to trade for somebody, folks. We don't want to make it sound like they're not. They're going to. Just how soon depends on who you ask. So I guess we will see. But speaking of Shota Imanaga, let's get to our second segment here. We do have some injury updates per Taylor McGregor of Marquee, one of which was Shota Imanaga. Shota Imanaga threw 37 pitches in his bullpen yesterday. He will go to Arizona to pitch in a game on Tuesday. So Shota Imanaga is progressing. They did say well into June, I believe was the quote. So we are now entering the second week of June. So maybe, I wouldn't say next week. I would say maybe end of the month. It seems like they're taking their time with him. So St. Louis and Houston, they have at the end of the month. So maybe for one of those series for Imanaga, that's a guess. I'm not reporting that. I want to make sure that's clear. That's a total guess. And then another injury update. Porter Hodge threw a 30-pitch bullpen yesterday as well. That was the entire report. So there wasn't any holdups or setbacks there. So hopefully Porter Hodge continues to progress and he can get into the bullpen ASAP. All right, let's talk about the standings. So after the Cubs lose the series in the Motor City this weekend, how are the standings looking? Well, Cubs are still in first place. The Cardinals and Brewers also lost today, which helps out. So the Cubs didn't lose a ton of ground this weekend. The Cardinals are now at 36-29, 4 games back. Milwaukee is now 35-31, 5.5 back. Cincinnati, a little bit of a roll here. They've been playing better. They are at 500 now at 33 wins, 33 losses, 7.5 games back of the Cubs. And Pittsburgh, who won today behind Paul Skeens against the Philadelphia Phillies, who we're going to talk about in a second. They are now 26-40, 14.5 back in the Central. So the Cubs still have a 4-game lead over the Cardinals, who are in second place. So they didn't lose a ton of ground this weekend. So if there's any silver lining there, that would be that. But let's talk about those Phillies. So Phillies, we're going to their barn this week. 3 against Phillies starting tomorrow, 5:45. It'll be Matthew Boyd against Zach Wheeler, who we mentioned already. Matthew Boyd on the season, 5-3 with a 3.01 ERA. Career against the Phillies, he's only got 1 game, went 6 innings, only gave up 2 earned runs, walked 2, and did allow a homer. Zach Wheeler, as previously mentioned, one of the better pitchers in the National League, 6-2 on the season with a 2.96 ERA. His career against the Cubs, not great. He's been very average and pedestrian, so hopefully that is the case tomorrow. In 9 games pitched, he's 2-2 with a 3.59 ERA in 52 2/3 inning pitched. Let's go to game 2. Game 2, 5:45 Central start time. It'll be Colin Ray versus Mick Abel, who we also mentioned earlier. Colin Ray 4-2 on the season with a 3.59 ERA. And on April 25th against the Phillies, he went 5 innings, 3 hits, 2 walks, no earned runs. That was right in the middle of Colin Ray's hot streak. And then Mick Abel, only in 2 career games, only has pitched 11 1/3 innings. He's 1-0 with an 0.79 ERA, so very small sample there. And then finally, getaway day on Wednesday, game 3 at 12:05 Central start time. It'll be Ben Brown versus Jesus Luzardo. Ben Brown, coming off his best outing of the season, now sits at 3-4 in the season with with an ERA of a 5.37 ERA. And then his last outing against the Phillies was April 26th. It was his worst start of the season by far. Only went 3 2/3 innings, gave up 9 hits, 6 earned, walked 1, 5 Ks. That was the start where he was really cruising, and then the Phillies were like, oh, we know how to hit all of a sudden, and just took it to him. And also in that game, so it is a literal rematch of the game on April 26th, Jesus Luzardo will be taking the hill on Wednesday, 5-2 with a 4.46 ERA. And against the Cubs on that April 26th start, went 6 shutout innings, only giving up 3 hits and striking out 5. Whew! All right. That was a lot of information I just threw at y'all. But Ty, what are you looking forward to in this series specifically? Because it's going to be another tough one.
I'm going to take a page out of my good friend Sam Olber's book, which is coming into a series against a good team after they've been pretty rough, right? And so the Phillies have won 2 of their last 11. They did just get swept by Pittsburgh.
They've lost 5 in a row.
5 in a row. Now, Bryce Harper is not in this series, folks. He, unfortunately, we don't wish upon injuries on any player. He is going to be on the IL. He had a wrist issue where he got hit in the wrist, and they tried to play through it, so they ended up just proceeding with him going on the IL. So you do miss out on a very, very talented baseball player. Look, the Phillies have been a weird team this year. Right now, OPS leaders, Kyle Schwarber's had an outstanding year of 928, but everyone else below 800. Turner's at 799, Castellanos at 743, and then you get Alec Bohm at 685. So offensively hasn't necessarily been what's keeping this team together. But again, it can all change. Every single week is completely different, but I thought that was important to note. Look, Zach Wheeler is kind of like the Tarek Skubal start. It's going to be it's the game in the series that you're either going to lose by a lot, or it's going to come down to minute little decisions that can change the course of the game. Mick Abel's a rookie. It's not really anything that he's been really good his first 2 starts. But again, it's a rookie, so you just don't know what to expect. And then Jesus Luzardo has been awful his last 2 starts, 20 earned runs. He'd only given up 16 earned runs all season in 11 starts. I don't really know what's going on there per se. It doesn't look like walks have been the issue. It just looks like he's just been getting hit around. So hopefully he hasn't made any adjustments this series before this game, hopefully. But look, Matthew Boyd's going to have to be Matthew Boyd as of late against Zach Wheeler. And then hopefully Colin Ray can give us, hopefully they'll do the opener again for him and get past Kyle Schwarber there in the first inning. And then with, Ben Brown, who knows what you're going to get. And like I said, hopefully Luzardo is what he is. But I think what's really important here is that the Cubs really need to have a bounce back series, because this is where in the past I've at least seen is where when the Cubs are doing well and then they go into not a slump, I would say, Alex, but I would say just it feels like the team starts to fall off a little bit. Hopefully not as bad as what we've experienced in the past. I think this makes this series, I mean, do we want to call it one of the more important series of the year based on what they just experienced in Detroit? Or do you feel like, hey, it's just the fact is that this is the schedule right now. Whatever happens, happens. They've taken care of business the last 2 months. Like, what are your thoughts there?
So Kyle and I kind of talked about this on Thursday when we recorded. If for me, just win one of the games in Philly, because that's a really tough place to play regardless. Those fans are on top of you. They are ruthless. I personally think the most important series that they're going to have this month, or of the season to date, will be that 4-gamer in St. Louis at the end of the month. This one, I would love it if they came out, because typically when this team doesn't perform well offensively, the next game all season, they really take it to that team the next day. Well, Zach Wheeler is no slouch. So you know what tomorrow means? That means put the kids to bed, because tomorrow is going to get ugly. I don't know if it's going to be good for the Cubs or bad for the Cubs, but I would not advise your kids to watch tomorrow, because I think it's going to be an ugly game. And something's going to have to give. Either the offense can't come out like they normally do after a tough game, or they're going to crush Zach Wheeler, which, of course, will make me do backflips. But and like you said, Abel, rookie, who knows? The Cubs historically facing a pitcher for the first time, not great. So that scares me a little bit. So really Wednesday on getaway day, they haven't played well on Wednesdays either, but Wednesday seems like the spot where, okay, they could probably get that one if Luzardo continues to be Luzardo of the last 2 starts. For me, just try and find a way to win one, because the way you've played lately, you could split this difficult, or if you go 2-4 on this, well, I'm not including the National Series, but 2-4 against Detroit and Philly, okay, fine. Then you have Pittsburgh for 4 at home. I like our chances there to at least split, if not win 3 or 4. And then it's Milwaukee, Seattle, St. Louis. Those are the only series. I'm not saying I'm looking past this series, because Philly let's try this in English, might be who you face in the playoffs. So I'm not sweeping this series under the rug. But truthfully, just win one, get out of there alive, get back home, and then against back-to-back division series, take care of business against those teams specifically. But again, if you can find a way to win a series against this really good Phillies team, who's right now at their lowest point, oh my God, do it. Get after them. I'm not just saying throw the series away. But realistically, tomorrow's going to be really tough. Tuesday, probably going to be really tough. And Wednesday, who the hell knows? Luzardo seems to own the Cubs. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a really tough series. But this is a tough month. But we are in first place by 4 games. Let's not forget that, folks. This maybe, as we're wrapping up here, I'm like, this podcast maybe seems very negative. Trust me, folks, I'm still very high. I still love this baseball team, this current construction. But this is their tough stretch.
And one more important thing to note here, too. The Cubs are the 3rd team to achieve 40 wins across the big leagues right now. And so, yes, we as podcasters, generally speaking, are going to look for what's not working when we lose a series, right? And realistically so, like I said earlier, against these very, very good teams, it comes down to these little decisions, right? So we are going to dissect those things probably more than we would if they were to end up winning this series, because we'd be talking about how in the world did we just win a game against Tarek Skubal or Cy Young. And so it's hard for us to sit there and look at all the positives. I would say Matt Shaw had a really nice weekend. If we're going to talk about a couple positives, I thought he had a nice weekend, getting a couple, getting back on. I would say back on the good side of things with his swing. I feel like he's just really coming together, his first bomb in a while. So that was really nice to see. PCA, I felt like offensively did well as well. But look, I think where I'm at right now with this team is that I would like just to see a little bit more. And I think it's just the fact is that we have not played a good baseball team in a while. And we finally did that this past weekend. And I think the Tigers are a legitimate team, like a World Series contender, if I'm being honest with you. And so I just, again, man, it's really hard because you want to sit there, you want to talk about like you're trying to look for good things with this series. And like we talked about Taillon, we talked about Shaw, but man, it just really, that one stung on Friday, dude. That one really stung. Yeah. So, but yeah.
Oh, but let's be honest. It's really nice losing sleep over Cubs games again because we haven't been able to do that the last couple of years. So
how fun is that, huh?
Oh my gosh, it's the best. It really is. So we are going to wrap up. Thank you for listening to this series recap edition of the Setup Man podcast. Remember, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button on your way out the door if you are watching us on YouTube. If you're an audio-only person, that's totally fine. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And then also, if you want to do something kind of scandalous and boost our numbers, subscribe, unsubscribe, then resubscribe, because that boosts the numbers. That would really help. So we want those numbers up. So even though it's a little devious, Apple Podcast doesn't know the difference. So I'm telling you, I'm whispering to you, just all you gotta do is subscribe, then unsubscribe.
Dude, I'm throwing you out. You're gone. You're gone.
What?
You're out of here.
I didn't
You're
even
out of
say
here.
Anything. All right. So after I just shared the secrets with you, we're gonna go ice up. And remember, also polls are open. Go vote PCA. Go vote Kyle Tucker. Go vote Nico Horner and what other Cubs you want to see.
Have you done that? I have.
Every day, 5 votes.
Wow, you've done that 5 different times.
I've done it since they've opened it, but I'm a psycho, and I really just want to see PCA in the starting lineup.
I'm gonna go put my arm on Ace.
He's gonna go ice up. Make sure to vote for the Cubs, and hopefully we'll be back with a winning series on Wednesday. It will be Kyle and myself. But until then, we're gonna go ice up. Go vote for your Cubs. We'll see you Wednesday.